All right, so now on to the third red flag, so that's surprisingly toxic, is when he's too blunt. All right. So now let me give this quick disclaimer. I, excuse my language, but I'm a recovering. Okay. I used to be that extremely blunt person. So I'm a recovered. Let me say that. I'm not recovering. I've recovered. All right. I've long separated from that side of me. But once upon a time, I was that guy who was extremely blunt. All right. And what I can tell you with confidence is that very blunt people tend to look at their bluntness as there's nothing wrong because I'm just being honest. I'm just being real. I'm not, they'll say I'm not rude, I'm just real. No, you're rude. I was rude. All right. It was rude. And bluntness, again, I'm always going to give you two sides to this. Bluntness can be viewed in a positive light in the sense that, yes, this person is always very honest. There's no game playing here. They're going to quote unquote keep it real with me. And that can be refreshing, right? But the reason why this can be toxic and really is toxic is because picture this. You're with this man. He's very blunt, all right? And let's just say in the beginning, you like it, you find it attractive, and you even celebrate it to a certain extent. And all is good until the moment comes that something happens that you're sensitive to. And now that bluntness cuts you deeper. That bluntness is not what you needed in that moment. You needed more compassion. You needed more consideration. But this man has been conditioned to thinking there's nothing wrong with being blunt. He has no tact whatsoever. And now, because he does not know how to watch his mouth or be mindful of his delivery in those moments, the hurtful things he says, or because of the way he says it, can now plant seeds of deeper hurt, of insecurity, of just toxic energy in the relationship. So it's very dangerous to make excuses for being blunt. And I say that from both sides. But as a woman who's dealing with this, you got to nip that in the bud from the beginning. We can welcome honesty, but bluntness without filter, bluntness without, not being tactful in the way you deliver the message, that should not be allowed. Because again, if you're going to allow yourself to think, but I'm good with it right now, you got to ask yourself, well, will I be good with it years later, months later, or again, at those times where the situation calls for more sensitivity. And this man has to learn how to speak to you and understand how certain moments call for a different kind of energy right now. All right. So it's important that that's established and discussed early on. But also, here's the thing. If you attempt to address things with that blunt person, because let's go back to me when I was younger. If someone would have came to me at that time and said, well, listen, you're too blunt, you have to learn how to talk to me, I'd have been like, I don't care. This is the way I am. This goes back to take me as I am. All right. This goes back to that stubbornness, that arrogance that doesn't allow the man to change and evolve and become better because they see nothing wrong with the issue. So you do have to understand that in addressing this, yes, if he's unwilling to be mindful of how he talks to you, and forget just talking to you, talks to people, because here's the thing. If he can't control his tongue or master his words with others, he will constantly slip up with you. The issue of being too blunt, and let's just call it what it is, being too rude, all right? It's going to pour over when you don't learn how to get better at it with people in general. So for me, like me getting away from that, I had to learn how to deliver my messages to anyone. It didn't matter if it was friends, associates, people online, whatever, that that modified delivery is important. And again, it's not asking people to not be honest and real. It's just asking people to be mindful of how they speak, how they deliver that message. So you've got to address it. And if he's unwilling to fix it, I'm telling you, you don't want to entertain it. And here's what else is also hitting my spirit that I need to mention. What a lot of people who are blunt aren't admitting to themselves is that being blunt is a very selfish act, all right? Again, we validate it by saying, well, I'm just being real, I'm just being honest, that's how I am. But the reality is what we're saying is, I don't want to have to hold myself to a higher standard of how I speak to people. I don't want to have to be mindful of my delivery. I want to be able to say things the way I want to say it, F what anyone else thinks. It's a very selfish, self-centered way of thinking. And in many cases, I'm not going to say all, but in many cases, it stems from a deeper brokenness in the person. Again, I'm speaking as someone who used to be that guy. What I can tell you, I'll be honest with y'all. And I'm not going to say this applies to 100% across the board to everybody. But I can say that when I was my most blunt, it came after being hurt. And me literally saying to myself, F the world, I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. I'm going to say what I want, do what I want, and whatever it is. All right? It was from brokenness. And a lot of times people don't want to acknowledge that it almost works in this guarded way. It's hard to explain, but it's a wall up essentially. It's a wall up, and we're not allowing ourselves to be more vulnerable in a way that allows us to be considerate of people's feelings, all right? And be mindful of people's feelings. And once we can tap into that, that changes everything. So that's another reason why you don't want to overlook it, because not only does that bluntness turns into something toxic in the relationship, it typically stems from something toxic within that person.
Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. And let me just say, I really want to talk about this one. And that is, he is unaffected by your emotions. So no one can ever convince